And Thursday breaks with fresh dew, and it appears pregnant with promise. We hope with a lot of good things. Good morning and welcome to your Perfect Morning Starter, the program that also brings you good tidings through the day. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzong, as always. Bukola, good morning. Good morning to all of you. I hope you had a beautiful night rest. And
you look good in black, Jeffrey. I couldn't resist the urge to say.
Thank you. It's an old jacket, just properly dry cleaned.
It doesn't matter if it's old or new.
I was trying to say that I just remembered that the Yuletide is almost upon us. How are you preparing for that?
Well, I haven't thought of it.
You have to thought of it. I love my English.
That came as a surprise. I haven't thought of it.
No, because it's one of my favorite seasons in the world.
Choose, same here.
I was born in December. I have lots of good memories when it comes to December. So when I was way younger, we go to the village every December. It's almost like punishment if you're not taken to the village. So it's always fun to, perhaps it's those memories of childhood that makes me, to remember December differently. But I know the economy is hard and tough and all of that. So for some time, it becomes quite difficult for a lot of people to celebrate as much as they can. So plan within your budget and do the best you can. You're not trying to impress anyone. Just live the best life you can. If you're the one that can afford to go around the world to celebrate the Yuletide, good and fine. If it's Nigeria, you can do it, good and fine. If it's around your home, you can do good and fine. This is just a basic advisory before the dirty December pressure kicks in. If you go to some cities right now, decorations are on, certain facilities are putting up those Christmas lights and all of that. So the mood is changing. Suddenly, we're also going to see the weather. Sometimes I get confused about the weather. It doesn't come till January. Why? Anyway,
which part of the weather, which aspect of the weather?
Harmattan. Yeah.
Well, we saw the haze a few weeks ago, and I noted it, but the Harmattan didn't quite accompany it, immediately. So we still haven't seen the Harmattan, but that haze that usually accompanies it, we have seen it some weeks back. But since you talk about Christmas, it's also a special time for me and my family, because my older brother was born on Christmas Day.
Oh, really? Is it Christmas baby?
Yeah. So we always converge in what we consider the village, really, for the celebration. So there are really no, grand plans. The plans are already grand because the day is special. But away from what's special to what we should be thinking about and reflecting on the implications is the policy that has come through from the federal government. Days ago, we were talking about the education sector and whether the policies are suited for the sector. But, it appears as if it's an ongoing conversation, and the government keeps tinkering with its policies in order to achieve perfection, we hope. And so it has come through. The federal government has scrapped the mother tongue as the teaching medium for schools from primary to secondary, I believe, levels. Let's take a deep dive into the reasons provided by the federal government. By the way, the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, was speaking on Wednesday in Abuja. He now says English will now be the language of instruction in Nigerian schools from primary, in fact, through tertiary levels. Of course, we've always known that English is the medium of teaching in tertiary levels. He spoke at the opening of the Language in Educational International Conference 2025, organized by the British Council. And one of the things that struck me, he said that this is as a result of, data from the testing of the use of, mother tongue as teaching mediums in in many states of the Federation. He said that, for instance, in the North, there are people who speak predominantly Kanuri, and you use Hausa to teach, that time and time and again, results have come through to, prove that it's a policy that will not work because there's mass failure that has been recorded. In the South, he talked about, the language being a challenge as well. For instance, in some parts of the southwest Lagos, in some parts of Lagos, the predominant population are from the southeast, and yet Yoruba is deployed as a medium of teaching, and then it also results in mass failure. So we have a diversity problem. I'm wondering if it has been the case all through, in all schools where the mother tongue has been deployed as a medium of teaching, because we've, also considered this debate time and again, why we shouldn't deploy mother tongue as a medium of teaching to show whether our results will be better and, to place more value, premium on our mother tongue instead of this preference for, the lingua franca being the language we inherited from the colonial masters. So it appears as if it has already been tested in certain capacity, but I wonder if it is, 100%, because English has been predominantly a medium of teaching, for those who have gone through the system and can, testify, with proof that indeed they were taught with English as the medium of teaching. So we're not going anywhere near preservation of our languages, and we're moving closer to, the possible extinction of some of our languages that should be preserved. But we do face a diversity problem, from what the minister has said that has informed this policy. So we do face a diversity problem. We do face, a teaching problem as well. How do you deploy, if we're to go by that policy, how do you deploy 100 teachers who have dexterity in all the languages to teach in the mother tongue? So it's a very, very important issue. Jeffrey, I wonder how you're weighing in on this.
Absolutely. So I know that it's going to be a very difficult situation because of the heterogeneous situation we found ourselves, multicultural, multi-ethnic nationalities. That's why I choose to call it. As a nation, we haven't achieved nationhood, but we're all ethnic nationalities in one sense or the other, depending on which data and who you're listening to. In the region of 300 to 400 different ethnic nationalities in Nigeria. So which do you put above the other? We have predominantly the three major languages, the Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, and all of that. And then we have other languages. So which do you put above others? So when you, places like China, places like Germany, places that have some form of a uniform language can be a lot easier to be able to implement some of these policies, except want to walk around pidgin in one way or the other. But I'm an advocate of the fact that I believe we can do better if we learn everything in our language or dialect, whichever you call it. How that will be standardized is another matter altogether. But I believe they've done the experiment. Those who are the experts, they've done the analytics, they've experimented, they've seen results, and they felt that, okay, for now, since we haven't gotten our acts together, I think it's important that maybe we'll shelve this idea and maybe tinker with it a bit over time to see how it can be. But just imagine that you had learned, some people who are afraid of mathematics, if you learned mathematics perhaps in your language, you would have maybe appreciated mathematics a lot more better. If you learned chemistry, physics, I mean, the ones that really throw people off, that people are really not interested in. Some of those things, if you had learned it perhaps in your language, because the Chinese has some of the most advancement in technology. You find it in China and part of Asia, and these people don't speak English. So how do they do it? It's their language. So there's something very natural about learning things in your own language. So maybe in the future, I suppose that this is going to be reconsidered. But for now, it's about the inability to fine-tune, the inability to know which to choose from the other. As a nation, we still have three major languages, not like Ghana, where they're, what do you call it? This is Twi, one of those their languages. There's a way they pronounce
Twi
it.
Or something.
Twi, something of that nature. So we don't have that. That's one. Are you going to choose Hausa? Are you going to choose Igbo? Are you going to choose Yoruba?
Yeah.
So that in itself is a complexity. That's why sometimes it feels like Nigeria needs to sit down and look for ingenious ways to approach nation building, given our uniqueness. And sometimes all you have to do is to go to nations that are similar to us in terms of population on one hand as an entity, multicultural ethnicities, as on the other leg, and maybe the religion end, and then see how we can fine-tune all of this. If there's a nation that is like ours and has results that we desire, it's just to pick the template, adopt it, adjust it, and bring it into our own reality to be able to get the kinds of results that we're looking for. Else, let's just stick to what we're used to.
Well, you have a very interesting point there. And if the ship has sailed on the conversation about, preserving our languages and ensuring, or guarding against extinction, we've been talking about looking for roles for traditional rulers who still want to be in some form of participation in governance. Beyond governance, we should also be looking at a role for them being custodians of culture, ensuring, through innovative ways in groups, age groups, youth groups, women groups, men groups, for these languages to continue to be spoken, with the younger ones, such that the baton is passed on, and the identity is retained from one generation to another, and we don't come back here 20 years from now and wondering where some other languages have gone out of extinction. We hope that that's not the problem, but the policy has been considered by the federal government can hardly be faulted because of this challenge of diversity. But there are other matters that we have for you today on the program.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's bring you up to speed what we're doing today before we get to the dailies. First up, we'll bring up that conversation about the threat of invasion and the threats of issues around killings of Nigerians, whether they are Christians or Muslim. We will continue to bring this and mainstream it until we see result. The president has admitted, yes, there is a problem in our country. He admitted it yesterday, but he said something is being done about it. So we'll look for another angle, bring in top people within the community that have been affected. And of course, from there, Bukola, you have the next one.
Yes, indeed. The president charged editors to criticize constructively and be the guardians of democracy, as they are gatekeepers in news dissemination. And so we reflect on the conversations from the All Nigeria Editors Conference, which took place yesterday in Abuja. We understand it's the first time a sitting president will be attending the All Nigeria Conference. So we get the feedback from one of the executive members of the leadership of the Nigerian Guild of Editors on the program today.
166 years of Nigerian press. How well, how far, how much have we gone, have we done? So that's going to be the conversation again today on the program. Hey, we're never celebrated most times, so we have a chance to talk about it.
Yeah,
Super Eagles of Nigeria will be out against Gabon. Morocco is where the attention of literally every patriotic Nigerian should be on. Well, we'll bring a guy who is already in Morocco and is following up on the activities of the Super Eagles. Thank God the bonuses or the monies or outstandings have now been paid. That is just by the corner. So let's look forward to what will happen. This is literally a do-or-die affair, if you will, without nobody dying anyway. But we're saying that, look, it's either you win or you go home. There are no two double chances, no second chances on all of this. How far will the Super Eagles go? We'll find out today on the program.
And from here, we'll take a moment. When we return, it will be time to look at the dailies. What are they saying about the biggest stories from the last 24 hours? So stay with us. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Let's get things off with the dailies. And Bruce Igboke is a media consultant and the chairman, Guild of Public Affairs Analysts of Nigeria, Enugu State Chapter. Mr. Igboke, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning.
Let's get started with, I'm trying to see which we're going to start with. I think let's get started with the Guardian newspaper. NGE insists on free press as Tinubu urges fairness, pledges recovery. That's Nigerian Guild of Editors insists on free press as President Tinubu urges fairness, pledges recovery. I know this is quite important to you as somebody in the public affairs space in that ecosystem of media and journalism. You know, the government has always mentioned the fact that they talk about investigative journalism, they talked about constructive criticism and all the things they tout as should be like the compass of journalism. What do you make of the appeal and comments by the president?
Well, the president, Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, has been a friend of the press. I think I've known him since he was a governor in Lagos State when he came in. In my own very eyes, he was sworn in on May 29, 1999. And those of us in the media space always know that he doesn't joke with the press. He has been there cutting the press, making friends with the press, ensuring that, you know, he's very accessible, and he also, you know, moves in the corridor of the press, to the extent that some years later, he also invested in the press, owning a newspaper, a national daily, and also owning radio stations and the television station, both terrestrial and, you know, terrestrial and cable, you know. So he has been there. And so I'm not surprised that he's the first president to do this. Most of those editors are his friends. They have known each other for years. But it also comes to say that the media, whether they are your friends or not, when we see news, it's like we are baying for blood. And when we see news that goes, the press cannot be bought. You state the news the way it states. News is news. And whether the news is negative or positive, so far it contributes to the development of the country. We need to say it the way we need to say it. But again, there's what we call framing in news. I think that's what the president is talking about. As a developing nation, there's what we call developmental journalism, where we need to frame our news in such a way, slant our stories in such a way that it encourages development. Unlike what the Western media want to do with us, they want to always push what is negative about our country. They want where there's war, where there's disaster, where there's famine, hunger, where there's unrest. That's what they want to report about Africa and about Nigeria. But we, as the journalists in Nigeria, we should always want to slant our stories to look at development and support the government in building the country. But again, we also hold the government accountable. So the government should also be careful when they want to say, oh, the media should be doing this. Last time somebody wanted to gag the media that we shouldn't be reporting about the battle against Boko Haram, or when things go wrong, or when our troops you know, are hit, we shouldn't report it. No, that is gagging. That is not what we are talking about. What we are talking about, we have held the reporting. If there are issues the citizens need to know about, we shouldn't kill it just because we are friends with the government. No, we need to hold the government accountable to the citizens. So I remember that the chairman of the NGE, the president, also mentioned the fact that the government should also look at the media to see whether they could subpedal on some of the things, especially VAT on equipment that we are bringing in, and trying to see whether they can subpedal on some of the things. Because Nigerian media journalists are one of the least paid in the world. Our remuneration here is very poor. And so it also behoves that the government should do something to uphold the standards of livelihood of journalists. Journalists are treated poorly in Nigeria and shouldn't be so. We should be treated like counterparts elsewhere. So it's a good way that they're having this synergy, they're having this discussion, and it's good for the Nigerian press.
Well, I did wonder also if the president's position expressed yesterday was an appeal or an opinion about the work of editors. But we'll have some of the senior journalists come to speak on the feedback from yesterday's conference. Let's go to Daily Trust newspaper now, and Daily Trust is looking at the nation's finances. Despite Tinubu's pledge, FG takes fresh 1.15 trillion naira loan. That's the big story on the front page of Daily Trust. And we saw the National Assembly yesterday, the upper and legislative chambers, approving the additional 1.5 trillion naira loan, and it adds to the deficit in the 2025 budget. Mr. Ibukwe, what does this say about, your compliance with the Fiscal Responsibility Act under this administration?
I think this administration has been very reckless with borrowing. One of the reasons given for the removal of subsidy in the petroleum industry is because of to free fund for to fund the budget, fund some other things that we need in the country. But paradoxically and in a very queer manner, we are even borrowing more. So what happens to the surplus of the subsidy that that came from the removal of subsidy? That is the question that I've not been able to answer over time. And the governors are with more extra cash, local governments are with more extra cash, the federal government have extra cash. What are they doing with those money? We have seen a very, very disturbing trend of multiple borrowing in the last 2 years. And the Senate keeps approving these things. Most of these things were borrowed to, to transfer to indigent families. We are borrowed for social protection. Yet we don't have list of the people that have received this. We are borrowed for all kinds of frivolous reasons. And that is not the, why we should be borrowing. We should be borrowing for production, not for consumption. These things keep recurring. And it says the government doesn't even listen to opinions from outside what they are bent on doing. The Senate, unfortunately, have become a rubber stamp Senate, and that is why Senator Adams Oshiomhole raised some of these issues he raised during the week about their conduct in this 10th Senate, where they just rush to approve anything that comes from Aso Rock. I mean, this not be so. They should interrogate some of those things. I say, does this loan, these loans, do they really, affect us positively or negatively? I think for me, it is negative because we are not seeing the fruits of those loans. We borrow for all sorts of frivolous reasons. We have not revamped our industries. We have not, for example, like Jokuta Steel Company is still lying there, Delta Steel Company, the Nigerian Sugar Company is still lying there, textile mills are not up. So what are we really borrowing for? We should be borrowing to, revamp our industries. Our refineries are still very dead. One man under a few years built a mega refinery, just one man. And then the whole federal government could not maintain its own 3 refineries or 4 refineries over the years. So it's disturbing that we are still borrowing for the 3rd generation. I don't think even the 3rd or 4th generation can pay this debt we have accumulated. We celebrated some years ago when President Obasanjo was the president through the efforts of Dr. Koji Wala then. We exited from Paris Club, exited from IMF, exited from so many loans, and we are not clean. But all of a sudden we said that no, heaping loans upon loans that generations of Nigerians will need to pay, therefore putting us in a very disadvantaged position. We don't need all these loans if they are always for consumption. If we must borrow, it must be to make sure that we revamp our industries and become a productive nation.
Well, interesting. Let's stay with that particular paper. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it, but I know that that's also been an argument, and some of the people who are responsible for managing funds or aggregating revenue or some form of accretion, sometimes what you call them, it's difficult to be able to get these conversations because, as you said, the initial thing the government did was what they call economic optimization, basically to look at wage bills and the things we can say, okay, let's stop spending money on this, and the public will bear the brunt as consumers, which is why all of the subsidies from electricity to PMS to that of defending the Naira was lifted so that we have now excess funds for the government, especially at the subnational level, which is why the president has been screaming. And I think it was in August when the president came and said, look, we've done so well, our non-oil revenue target, which was about 20 or so trillion, has now been met. So we will not need to be going to domestic borrowing, reducing the crowding out effect. So sometimes it's pretty surprising to see how this comes. But we know that borrowing, for instance, is part of the appropriation bill that was signed that became a budget. But if we have made money from other sources of revenue, I wonder why we borrow. But these are the conversations we need to have with the managers of the economy to be able to explain. The funny thing about government, Mr. Ebuka, is that no matter what you say, government has an explanation, whether they make sense or they don't, or you accept or you don't accept. But let's stay with the New Telegraph, the bottom of it, where reps to audit abandoned federal government properties nationwide. Review Presidential Implementation Committee. We understand that about 11,000 of those property scattered all across Nigeria. Is this just another talk shop, or this is for real? Because if there's nothing to do with it, why don't we just privatize it or sell it and use the money and put it in our federation account to use to do other things?
What we are saying, for those of you in Lagos, go to Ikoyi and Victoria Island. You will see a lot of government properties that have been abandoned over the years. And a lot of people, in fact, people now, people have become emergency landlords on top of federal government property, renting and leasing the places at their whims in our capital. People from different sources are also doing that. So one comes to explain, why do the federal government have all those kind of assets? I remember, I think it was during the time of Mr. Babatunde Fashola, where he was able to recover, I think, Marina House also, and some other properties. He was able to get it from the federal government. I think the federal government should, give those properties or give the states subnationals an option of first refusal to acquire those properties. They should not sell it to themselves. Because the properties are so many, and some of them are very prime properties. For example, we have a lot of them in Ikoyi, for example, and VI, and so many other choice areas in different parts of the country. They have been abandoned for years, so it's not needed. So those things should be, those assets should. And most of the time, they sell it to their cronies, they sell it to their friends, and then most of the time,
oh dear.
So we need to set up a committee to know how many properties we have. Those are the kind of things the international community here has said that we are not a serious country. So we don't have a database of what we have or what. We need to start now setting up committee going around. They will engage on a field tour, and then they will do a report. They will set up another committee to review the report of the committee, and then we go in the same cycle. And if it sees the light of day, if it's just not a jamboree of excursions, if it sees the light of day, then we will now see the sales will be so opaque that we start wondering what went wrong. Our country should not be doing this kind of topsy-turvy actions after 65 years of independence. We should look at our age mates. Let's call it like that. Let's look at Mexico. Let's look at Brazil. Let's look at the United Arab Emirates that even started yesterday, being a superpower. Look at Saudi Arabia. These are our mates. And look at what they have done with their own oil. And here we are, still talking about whether we don't know the number of property the federal government have. I think we should wake up, and the sleep has become too long.
Indeed. We hope that this yet again will not be swept under the carpet. Let's look finally now at Daily Independent, and it takes, a look at the PDP leadership crisis. Despite court order, PDP vows to go ahead with national convention. Mr. Dr. Ibuke, go ahead, just go ahead.
I don't know whether they know what is called contempt of courts for you to actually see what to go ahead despite court order. These are the kind of impunity we practice in this country. You have a court order, you came out on national media to say that despite the court order, you will still go ahead. Therefore, having a contempt of court. The person, I think the court should wait if they really go ahead and there's a subsisting order that they should not go ahead and they go ahead to do it. I think the people should be arrested after that, because it's contempt of court. But in this country, there's a way we cherry pick those to be punished who go against the law and those not to be punished. And these people know that even when they might go ahead to do it, and nothing will happen. Because this is a country of impunity. We just saw some, just day before yesterday, the videos of the Federal Capital Territory Minister with his ways and means that are not beholding of a public officer. And these are the things we see all around. When we have processes and procedures we don't want to follow, we want to behave as if we are in a gangster environment. These are the things we see. For those leaders at that level to come out and say that despite court order, we'll go out. What are they teaching the younger ones? What are they teaching the generations? What are they teaching those who are learning from them? Are they teaching them that courts don't matter? That whether court gives you but again, That has been the practice. That even the federal government itself cherry picks on what they want to, which court order they want to obey. So it's very unfortunate that we have people at that level saying that they won't obey court order, they will go ahead. But I think the court also should start asserting its authority, because the courts have become, weaklings. They only have the strength for poor men, for poor people and poor citizens. If they go ahead to do it and there's a subsisting court order, the court should bear its fines and arrest those, so no matter whose house is God, arrest those who, went against his order. That will maybe set a good example as we are entering the political season next year.
Well said, Mr. Igboke. Apparently, of course, there's cherry picking from federal government to political parties. So, as I said, everything rises and falls on the poor. It's only the poor that the system seems to have power over. But when it comes to all of these individuals, some of these individuals, looks like the system is handicapped. And that's why we see the level of impunity we see across board. And it's quite shameful. The law is simple. Whether the law is right or wrong, as long as the courts a judgment or a ruling from a court you obey. And then we are seeing, even in this PDP case, we've seen sometimes, even on political issues, courts that have no jurisdiction hearing cases and giving order. And then court of coordinate jurisdiction giving contradicting order. It's just a mess of the situation. I don't know whether the Supreme Court or the Chief Justice of Nigeria, the National Judicial Council, has to just wake up and do something about this, as you correctly said. Maybe to say any party or any group or whatever that disobeys and refuses to respect our order, if you bring a case, we're not going to hear it. The speed with which politicians get ex parte and judgment and rulings is amazing. So that's why they take these things for granted. But we're here, as we said, to be the watchdog and to call them out when necessary. But well, thank you, Mr. Ambrose Igboke. Igboke is the media consultant, chairman, Guild of Public Affairs Analyst of Nigeria, Enugu State Chapter. We appreciate you always for coming through for us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me on the show. Good morning.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll discuss the issue of around the alleged Christian genocide and the conversation that have ensued. Well, the federal government said there seemed to be some progress in the diplomatic channel that has been explored. But as the killing stopped, that's the big question. Have the people who have been crying out, which have generated outrage across the world and around Nigeria, have they gotten succor? We'll bring some of the most significant voices as far as this conversation is concerned in just a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. And so we continue our conversation on the concern about allegations of Christian genocide in Nigeria. Of course, we know that this comes on the heels of the designation of Nigeria by US President as a country of particular concern and the proposed military invasion by the US. But more importantly, what are the voices, those affected saying about this allegation of Christian genocide? And how satisfactory is the federal government's position that diplomatic talks are ongoing between Abuja and Washington, such that progress has been made already? Let's continue our reflections on this. And this is by no means an easy conversation to have. Of course, we're going to speak to, all groups concerned, and so we've extended invitations also to Muslim groups to come speak on the program. But joining us this morning, we have Bishop Wale Oke, who is the president of the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria. He joins us right here in our Lagos studio. We also have joining us virtually from Jos, Plateau State, Reverend Gideon Paramalam. He's the president, Gideon and Fumi Malam Peace Foundation. Good morning, Bishop, and thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
And Reverend, I believe you're with us already. Reverend Gideon Paramalam, thank you for joining us on the program.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, indeed.
Good morning.
So let's start right here in our Lagos studio. Bishop, you have spoken in other, medium, and you've submitted that indeed there is a Christian genocide in Nigeria. I'd like you to articulate for us, the reasons for your position. Perhaps you've had, groups, appeal to the PFN in the past, talking about these concerns. What's the strength of your position?
Indeed, there's Christian genocide in Nigeria, and it's been going on for over 15 years now. Now, this administration inherited the challenge. So we're not holding them, we're not blaming them for it. They made it on ground. But we're holding them accountable for the life of every Nigerian, particularly in the church, to stop the genocide. When we're talking about genocide, as you talk of a place like Dogonaya, where one night 501 Christians were massacred. You talk of Benue State, on Christmas Day was invasion, hundreds were killed. There was mass funeral. I could not hold back my tears that day when I saw the lineup of coffins, and I said, we're not in active war, and innocent people are being killed simply for the offense of being a Christian. And that has been going on, all over the place. The mass killings are there, the individual killings are there in various states in the north. In one of the states in the north, one of the pastors, when they gave them quit notice, Boko Haram said they should leave the north. He refused to leave. He said, I'm not a criminal, I'm a Nigerian, I'm caring for the sheep. I cannot leave the people of God and go away. And they dealt with him very badly. What did they do? They watched when he went to preach somewhere, and they attacked his family. His wife just had a set of twins. Before the eyes of this woman, they slaughtered the 2 children like ram. The woman went really crazy, and the church had to do something over a period of time to rehabilitate her. That had been going on. What about Leah Sharibu? Where is she? What about the Chibok girls? Everybody knows that the Chibok community is a predominantly Christian community. The attack had been going on like that in Plateau, in Taraba, in Kaduna South, in Benue State, and it's going on unabated. In fact, since Donald Trump spoke about this thing, killings are still going on in Benue State. Now, we want the killings to stop. And if it is going to stop, we've got to be truthful about it. Jesus Christ said in John 8:32, the truth shall make you free. If we try to play politics with this matter, we will not get to the bottom of it. Let's identify it as what it is, genocide. Let the government take responsibility to do something about it. And we have it on record that specialists in security matters, even commissioned by the government, has submitted reports to past administration on this matter, and they refuse to act on it. We want ASROC to stand up, Mr. President, to act on it. Mr. President is responsible for the life of every Nigerian, Christians, Muslims, whosoever they may be. And we are saying there is Christian genocide, and Mr. President should not deny it, should identify it. Take, for example, if South Africa in those days did not recognize that there was apartheid, apartheid would still be going on today. But because they identified it and they found a way out, and Mandela was so magnanimous, he didn't seek revenge. The church in Nigeria were not seeking revenge. No, but we want it to stop. We want the killings to stop. Whether individual killing, what about Deborah in Sokoto that was lynched while people were shouting Allahu Akbar and they burned her to death? All those things are going on. We want it to stop. That is the stand of the church. Not revenge, but an end to the mindless killings of Christians, both in mass and individually.
Now, you did say that reports had been submitted to government in the past. I'd like to follow up on that, but let's quickly expand the conversation and take it to Reverend Paramalam. The same question to you, but let me just put it in proper context now, this time around. You know, sometimes, or most of the time, when the issue of, you know, religious debate comes up, Nigeria is often misrepresented as Muslim North and Christian South, whereas we have both Muslims and Christians in the North. So amid these killings, is it possible that, you know, the understanding that, you know, Christians are targeted is just circumstantial, bearing in mind that Christians and Muslims sometimes dwell in the same communities in the North? Reverend Paramalam, that's for you.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much. Again, I'm glad to be with you. I think that wrong narratives has a way of encouraging impunity. The North is not all Muslim. There are significant Christians, leading Christian voices who live in the North. And when I mean Christians, Christians are all over the North, whether it is Sokoto, Kano, Jigawa, Kaduna, Borno, several. There are Christian communities. But what we have seen in the North Central region and the Middle Belt parts of Nigeria in the North is that the killings have been selected and targeted. No doubt Muslims are being killed in northwestern Nigeria, but Christians are also being killed in places like Katsina, Zamfara, and the rest of them. Now, what you have in the Middle Belt is targeted killings. I live here. I visit those places. I'm also involved in peace work, so I interact with all the stakeholders. You go to certain communities in Plateau, you would discover that Christian communities, most of the attacks and killings take place there. You go to Benue, it's the same scenario. Then you also have some Muslim settlements, Fulani settlements, but you don't have those mass amount or level of attacks in those places. So are Christians targeted? Yes. Have these targeted attacks been sustained? Yes. Let me give you an example. Just this month of November alone, 3 attacks have taken place in Chibok, the surrounding villages. On the 1st of November, a village was attacked in Chibok. That's Borno State, southern Borno, Christian dominated. And on the 10th, another village was attacked. And yesterday, 12th, the first village that was attacked on the 1st was re-attacked. 16 girls were kidnapped. Churches burned. Shops burned. Properties belonging to Christians burned. So are we talking about a distant occurrences taking place? No. It's something that's just taking place now. As late or as soon as yesterday, 12th. So that's the pattern. That's what we have. So it would not be correct to give the impression that we've listened to those arguments and the federal government knows better. The security people also know better. We are not saying that Muslims are not being killed, but I have always maintained that the fact that Muslims are killed, and we extend our sympathies to those families of Muslims that have lost their loved ones. But how does it in any way deny the targeted killings and attacks of Christians? 1. How does it deny the fact that Christians are persecuted? 3. How does it even deny the story of the genocide? We shouldn't be having these conversations on whether there is genocide or persecution against Christians or none. It is real. It is happening. I think that what needs to be done, and we need to join our hands and our hearts together, is for the government to actually work and act to stop this killing, particularly in North Central, in Borno, and also in other places like the Northwest. It's concerted actions to end those killings. I think that's what we should be arguing and pushing for, and not whether there is genocide or persecution or not. It is real from the examples that I've just given. And I've given those examples of Chibok, so we know that it's not just Chibok. What about Plateau State? Just last Friday, 12 people were killed. What about Benue? People were killed. What about Southern Kaduna? People were killed. So that's ongoing. This even in the midst of the debate. I think that as Nigerians, we need to seize the opportunity. We need to seize this moment. It's not about President Trump of America. It's about Nigerians. We can solve this problem internally if we choose to be honest, stand up, and have the political will to work together. And I mean we work together, both Christians and Muslims. I've read some of the releases by the Supreme Council of Islam denying the persecution and what have you. I think it's just complicating our problem in Nigeria. The Muslims need to own up and be honest, and let's work together with Christians to end these killings over Nigeria. Over Nigerians, rather.
All right. Bishop, you know, you mentioned the fact that there were even reports, which is the question Bukola was building on. Maybe you, if it's something you can share, what those reports are. And why do you feel that there is a sense of denial? I don't think the government is denying that there are killings. I think the government only is denying of a genocide. Why do you think that is?
Denying that there is genocide is not honest or sincere enough. It's being political. And we shouldn't be political with the blood of Nigerians. When lives are involved, we should deal with the truth. Now, when there was mass burial in Benue State, it was in the glare of the whole world. The media were there, local media, national media, it's all over the place. Now, reports have been submitted again and again, and I'm not going to go into details on that because they are security reports. On the tables of Mr. President, like we said, not this administration that caused it. When it started over 15 years ago, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was not the president now, but he has inherited both the asset and the liability of Aston Villa. The liability, one of the major liabilities, is that there's targeted Christian killing, like my brother just said. There's genocide, it's in public glare, and the president should rise up and deal with it. Now, for us in the Christian community, we're not asking Donald Trump to come and invade Nigeria. That may make a bad situation worse. But we want to seize the president to seize this opportunity as an occasion to rise up and be very decisive in dealing with this matter. But denying that there is genocide does not win the trust of the Christian community that are at the receiving end. The government needs to win the trust of the church by agreeing that indeed there are genocide. Look at the report that have been submitted to you in the past, and then act on it. Use the occasion of Donald Trump blowing the trumpet to pick the matter up and deal with it decisively. There is genocide in Nigeria. Reports have been submitted again and again. Aston Villa cannot deny that. So they have it on their table.
Bishop, so when you say action needed, I've heard a lot about the needed action from the you're the leader, one of the leaders of the church. You're one of the patriarchs alive now. What is the action that do you think the government can take right now under this moment when there's serious attention that can rebuild the confidence and satisfy the Christian community to say, okay, government cares?
First is to identify the problem correctly. You don't call cancer headache. No, you call it by its name. If it is properly diagnosed, then you can now begin to find solution to the challenge. So government needs to be honest about this. And number two, government needs to reach out to the Christian community that we are hurting. I mean, we've just talked about a few now. The case of our girls being kidnapped, married away without the consent of their parents. It's happening across the north, and it's a targeted attack. I've had to deal with a lot of this. Christian girls. I've had to deal with a lot of this in Jigawa State, in Bauchi State, in Sokoto State. Christian girls being kidnapped, married away forcefully without the consent of their parents. And the parents will not be allowed to see the girls for years until they become mothers. And it becomes the norm. They are Nigerians. Their only offense is that they are Christians. And this should stop.
And in diagnosing it, Bishop, and I'm going to take this also to Reverend Gideon, in diagnosing it, why are Christians targeted? And this is not discountenancing that Muslims are also being killed.
Definitely.
Why are Christians targeted?
Now, we do not deny that Muslims are being killed. But you see, it is the Islamic sect called Boko Haram and ISWAP that are behind this thing, and they have an agenda. Their agenda is to impose Sharia as the governing system of Nigeria. And a couple of years ago, they issued a quick notice to all Christians in the north that they should move out of the north.
A couple of days ago?
Years ago. I think that was 2010. And the government did not react. It was a public decree, according to them, that Christians should vacate the north and move to the south. We didn't hear the government speaking and rebuking them and dealing with it and arresting them for inciting confusion in the public. Now, that doesn't sound like government is caring for people that are hurt, people that are being killed, their relations that are mourning, the church that is crying. We have been talking about this for over 15 years. We've presented data, we presented reports, and it doesn't look like the government is identifying with us enough in the north to work with the church to stop the killings. We want the killings to stop. Now, if the government reaches out, I've heard you mention diplomatic, consultation and all of that. Let our government ask for the help of American government in terms of sharing intelligence, in terms of requesting for weapons, in terms of requesting for jets that they can use to deal with the people. Now, if Nigerian government had been able to resolve the problem, would have resolved it. The matter has been lingering for over 15 years. If for 15 years it is still going, like Brother Paramalam said, Dr. Malam said, even yesterday, 1st of November, 12th of November, killings are still going on. The government have not been able to deal with it for over 15 years. Ask for help from international partners that have the capability, the intelligence network to help us and let them come. And help us.
To Reverend Paramalam, you are involved in peace work, and over the years, help us understand why Christians are targeted, or the thinking of the aggressor.
Okay, I thank you again, and I totally endorse what Bishop Wale Oke, our president, has shared. But let me just quickly say this. Christians are targeted because of the undeclared policy of Islamizing Nigeria. It's not that Muslims don't want Christians to live in Nigeria, but they want Christians to be subjugated to the absolute control of Islam. The introduction of Sharia points to that. Nobody is saying don't practice Sharia. You cannot impose Sharia on Christian communities and Christians who live in those places. I'm involved also in direct advocacy. I can tell a vivid graphic story of what happened to Deborah Samuel, the build-up and how she was burnt alive. Why was that so? How could Deborah Samuel be burnt alive in the security guard post of a tertiary institution in Nigeria, and it took hours before it happened? How do you subject a Christian girl, promising Christian girl, to Islamic laws under trumped up charges of blasphemy? Simple. She was lynched. And that's one story of what several Christians suffer. So why is that so? When you study the Constitution of Nigeria, please, and I want to challenge that we engage this debate openly. How many times has Sharia been mentioned? Is Sharia mentioned in our Constitution? How many times is Muslim mentioned in our Constitution? Grand Qadis and the rest of it. Go back and look at that Constitution of 1999. How many times did they make reference to Christians, church, reverence, and the rest of it? So it's Nigeria an Islamic state? The answer is no. But it's Nigeria indirectly imposing Islam on the rest of us? The answer is yes. Go to Christians who live in the far north. They will tell you their stories. Their jobs are not guaranteed. Their jobs are only guaranteed based on the goodwill that they receive from their Muslim leaders. Bishop mentioned about Christian girls that have been forcibly picked up and married off. Let me add, there are also Christian men or women who are picked up from their husband's house, and the next thing is their husbands will receive messages from the Sharia court that they are to appear or that their wives have been married off. We have documents, and like Bishop said, all those documents are available. So Christians are targeted. Now, I'm into peace building. So I believe in promoting peaceful coexistence between Christians and Muslims in Nigeria. What I'm simply saying is that it's impossible for peace to reign, sustainable peace to reign in Nigeria if there's no justice. So there are several issues bordering on justice that they need to be addressed. Whatever is good for the Muslims should also be good for Christians everywhere. Now, Christians actually do not get certificate of occupancy to build churches, or even when they build those churches, they don't get it. So their churches, in some places, in the Northwest in particular, they're basically rented. They are the will and caprices of the government. Right. Can something be done to change that? There's even a much more trickier issue, which is indigenship, that has also been at the part of triggering some of the attacks that you see in north-central Nigeria. So a Christian can live in Sokoto for as many years as they can live there, but they do not have the right to become indigents of Sokoto state.
All right.
But a Muslim can come into Plateau State and live for a number of years. The same thing in Southern Kaduna, the same pattern, the same thing in Benue. They have the right to ask for funds to be indigents. These are issues that come up in conversations. These conversations. Right. So you hear them out. So you can see the injustice that is reigning. And before you realize that, it becomes a trigger and people are attacked and killed. But much more importantly is in Plateau State, Southern Kaduna State. It's not just that Christian communities are targeted and attacked, But some of those Christian communities, all the Christians have been chased out from their communities.
All right, all right.
Some of those villages have been occupied.
Let's begin
and some of those villages are being renamed.
All right. Let's begin to take last words now. Bishop, the U.S. is proposing military invasion, but the federal government is saying we've begun diplomatic engagements. How satisfactory is the position of the federal government about this, conversations?
Now, whatever needs to be done should be done to stop the killings. The life of every Nigerian is precious, and the targeted attack against the church should stop. If the president wants to ask for intelligence sharing, training in counterterrorism, or wherever they know that America has expertise, let them ask for it. For us, we do not want an invasion of America, invasion of Nigeria. We don't want it. We want Donald Trump to cooperate and work with our president and to hold our president accountable for stopping this targeted killing and kidnapping of our members. That's what we want. We don't want revenge, like I said, but we want an end to killings. We want every Nigerian, whether Muslims or Christians, to be able to live freely, walk freely, practice their religion freely, anywhere in Nigeria.
All right, Reverend Paramalam, 60 seconds as well. Bishop says the PFN doesn't want an invasion. What's the position of Christians in the north?
Christians in the north, very honestly, would like to see a complete end to these killings and the targeting of Christians for genocidal killing. We want to see an end to it. And I would also say that Donald Trump would have no business coming to Nigeria if Nigeria gets their acts together. So our president needs to work. It's not the narratives that will end the killings. It is proper action that will end the killings. And the federal government needs to work together with credible Christian leaders and Muslims to see these killings come to an end.
All right. We must thank you very much, gentlemen. This has been by far a very productive conversation. Reverend Gideon Paramalam is the president, CEO, Gideon and Fumi Paramalam Peace Foundation, and Bishop Walioke is the president, Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on the program.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless you.
As we said, amen to that. As we said, we will indeed continue to mainstream this conversation to represent Muslim groups as well. So that's coming up. Up next, we'll be looking at the 21st All Nigeria Editors Conference, and of course, vis-a-vis 166 years of press in Nigeria. So stay with us, we'll be right back.
Welcome back. Let's talk about the press. 166 years of Nigerian press. And I've been joined by the Deputy President, Nigerian Guild of Editors, and the Chairman, 21st All Nigerian Editors Conference that is taking place in the nation's capital, Abuja, Mr. Sebastian Abu. Mr. Abu, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Olumide. Thank you for having me on the program today.
I will accept that name on behalf of my colleague Olumide, but my name is Jeffrey. But it's well done. Okay, 166 years. I think the natural question to ask, none of us have been alive that long, but you being in the leadership, I'm sure you have the history. Looking back all the way down to today, how would you assess the freedom of the press and the performance of the press?
Thank you very much. Let me start off by saying that the press has been very consistent in trying to bring stability to this country, and in also trying from the very outset since it started 160 something years ago, first through the colonial era, to set the tone for conversations, and even up to the period of independence and post-colonial era. And so the press have continued to be relevant, and it has over time also for how it has continued to engage the public and also provide set agendas for which our country have continued to evolve. So I think that the press is still relevant. The press is doing well. A number of issues that have to do with technology has also come in, which has also improved the way we have continued to engage, in which we have continued to provide content to the teeming, audiences that watch and read news all over the world. So more or less, I can say, straight on that the press has evolved and has continued to evolve well and has continued to be relevant. Thank you.
Let's begin to look at the outcomes of yesterday's conference, the beginning of the 21st conference of the All Nigeria Editors. How significant is it that it's the first time a sitting president is attending the conference? That's on the one hand. And on the other hand, I'd like you to also speak to the appeal of Mr. President to the editors to criticize constructively and uphold Nigeria's democracy. Is that an appeal or an opinion?
Yeah, well, let me start off from the honor that the President granted us to, attending the 21st conference, for which I'm privileged to chair the organizing committee. And this for us is very novel, and this also is quite appreciated. And at some point, we were already beginning to feel inconsequential that a sitting president do not find the guild worthy enough to be part of our conferences and also be part of the conversations that we push forward in terms of advancing our democracy, in terms of advancing our economy, and in terms of advancing the security and cohesion of our country. And so graciously, the president, attended. We remain eternally grateful for the honor he gave us. And we're also thankful to the Minister of Information and the Presidential Communication team for making this happen. Now to your second question, which has to do with the request that the president made. Well, he made his request about the need for editors and journalists as a whole to continue to report, but ensure to the nation. What we do basically as editors is to hold government accountable and nothing more. And so whatever is those in government always think about what the role of the press and particularly the editors should be is usually in their own interest. But meanwhile, the editors also have a role to play, and our role is to ensure that the government is accountable to the people that has elected it into office. And so for us, the president didn't say anything new per se, but only re-echoing what other past governments have always said about the need to collaborate with government, which is also very needful. But also what is more important that we were also able to put across the president is the fact that the landscape, the current landscape under which the press operates, it's very, very difficult, unconducive. Now the economic landscape. And so we're also able to put some requests to the president, and we are happy that as a mediapreneur himself, he understands very, well what the issues are. And a number of those pertinent issues he raised, we also understand. And we are hoping going forward that these issues that, particularly the request that has been put to Mr. President, will be adhered to and be we expedited so that, the press can continue to remain afloat, and do its business in a manner that will be patriotic and in a manner that will continue to be sustainable.
So when we talk about press freedom, and because I try to look at the Constitution all the time, excuse me, one of the languages the Constitution uses, we must hold government account at all times. It means that at every point we don't hold government account, we're in breach of the Constitution. And that's why I started with that generic question of your appraisal of the past to the present. Do you think we're really doing enough to hold government account? Because sometimes I see citizens say, some of us are even in bed. I mean, media now, we're even in bed with the government. Well, political party opposition, the National Assembly, they see it as rubber stamp. They see that's a perception. Whether it's true or false is a different matter altogether. They see institutions as compromised, whether it's judiciary and all of this. They see opposition political parties as not dependable. And then the last resort, which is the media, they also see that media is compromising. This perception is very strong in the eyes of the people. So most of the time what you see is that the people become direct opposition to the government. In fact, it is said that the 2027 election will be between the APC and the people of Nigeria. It is their verdict. So I said all of this to ask, do you think we're doing our job the way we should do it, to the best of our ability to, gain the trust of the people that we can represent them even when our lives are in danger?
Yes, let me say that the press are not adversaries to government. We are not at all in any way. And as a matter of fact, we are partners in progress. And going back in history, we must also understand that, the press has continued to do its job and at a lot of cost. In fact, in many cases, the cost of their lives, which a lot of people, especially members of the public, do not take into account. And we must also, as we look at back in history, we'll see what and how the press have continued to project issues that has to do with living conditions of people. Fighting for the national movement that led into the independence and bringing our colonial masters, pricking their conscience about what the people expect. And also, we must also appreciate what the press is doing in terms of also balancing between what should be reported generally in public and what it is that we need to engage government with moderately so that we can continue to have a country. Information which everybody thinks that they need to have is not always is not always served easily in the manner that people think. First, you have to dig, like using your bare hands to dig through the ground. And even when you find some information, it is always important to know that information is like a floating water. If it overflows, it bursts the pipe. If it underflows, it contaminates the water. And if you need to get it in a manner that needs to be edible for the people to consume it, then it needs to be kept proportionate. And so these are some of the things that the press have been able to do constructively and responsibly over time. And I think also that are some of the things that government is demanding of us to do. But again, we have a responsibility and we will not be cowed from doing that. We'll continue to do our jobs in the manner we feel that is responsible. But again, we have a duty, to also be patriotic to our country, because Nigeria is a country that we all must continue to nurture, and we must continue to speak truth to power where the time comes, and to also emphasize that the press is not, an adversary to government, but rather a partner in progress.
Indeed, and you've rightly, referred to that partnership, which is critical. And we did note also that the Minister of Information was presented with an award yesterday at the conference. I'm just, trying to tie this against the backdrop of the comments made by the minister just days ahead of the conference during the ministerial press briefing that he put together, where he said no journalist has been imprisoned under this administration. And this year alone, we can count a number of journalists that have been arrested and detained. In fact, during the most recent protests, there are reports that the hashtag Free Nnamdi Kanu protest, there are reports that some journalists that were covering that protest were part of those who were arrested. I'm just wondering if this award sends a wrong signal. How strong has this partnership been with, the government under the, leadership of the Minister of Information? How much support have the media enjoyed, particularly during challenging times when journalists are arrested?
Yeah, I think also that we must also be fair to the Minister of Information, Malam Mohammed Idris. What he simply said is that at no time has government, giving directives for the journalists doing their legitimate businesses or covering news to be arrested. But we also do know that most times where, you have overzealous security men who swap on these journalists and embarrass them in cases, in similar cases that you have mentioned. But again, I can tell you, whenever that is done and you call upon the minister, it's always swift to respond. And, distant time, we've always seen where such individuals have been released. We have continued to engage, and we are still engaging. And it's important for you to know that the minister, despite being in government, is also, a media entrepreneur. He understands this issue very well, and so I think also that what is needed for the government to do is to continue to impress on our security men to know that just as they are there to do their jobs, the journalists are also there to do their jobs, and that the proper perimeter for doing such jobs for the security and also the press must be clearly set, so that they do not continue to use taxpayers, acquired weapons to intimidate the media. And so this is the position we have continued to press for and will continue to press for. Thank you.
Let's talk about what the government has always raised and how you feel this can be balanced. I know you mentioned it in passing. In fact, there are two issues, but let me raise just the first one. If we have time, I take on the second. And that's the issue of demarketing Nigeria's image as vis-a-vis looking at being critical of government. It has always brought this debate as to people say, oh, why do we always look at the negative side? Why don't we look at the positive side? How do we balance that to uphold national unity, national development, as against still holding on to our job, which is, our job is to look at where they don't want us to look at. That's the way I see my job. They don't want us to see something. My job is to find that thing they don't want me to see and make it public if it is in overriding public interest.
I think you have stated, what the issues very clearly. Our job is to continue to expose. Their own job is to continue to cover. But in between the two, I think also that what government requires the media to do mostly is to, serve more as a propagandist. But that is not what our jobs, are cut out for. So for us, where we are required, what we are required to do is to continue to do our jobs, particularly when you talk about exposing, our country to global ridicule. For me, we have a job to do, and our job, most importantly, is not about pleasing those in government. It's not about pleasing, anyone that feels that needs to be pleased, but we just continue to do our jobs, and because that's their opinion, and our own opinion is to continue to hold government accountable that what they are doing wrongly, and if they feel that what we are saying, they can engage us. But I think also that trying to put pressure on government, trying to report some of these issues, is for us to get government to do the right thing and to project our country in a manner that will continue to, be in right standing before the Committee of Nations. And so we are not cowed by that, neither are we continue to do the bidding of government, but rather that in doing it, again, I say we must continue to be responsible. We must continue to understand that we also have a country to build, and in doing that, we will continue to uphold the very ethics of our profession, which is to be objective at all times.
Now, the editors did make an important appeal to the federal government yesterday, and this is critical amid the challenges of media convergence, the digital age, where market share is now becoming really split. In fact, taking up by the new media and the challenges of finances. But is this message of appeal, let me just look, read out some of them. Tax relief for 5 to 10 years to help media houses stabilize and meet operating costs, and VAT exemption. Is it, how strong has this made an impression on the federal government, and what assurances are you getting that indeed there'll be a headway in this appeal to the federal government? And more importantly, how will the media balance getting this with interference by the government in its work, if indeed it comes?
Well, the demands we have made are not they are not in themselves anything that is new, and it does not also in any way putting the press or the media generally at arm's way in terms of how government will influence it, but rather that these are things that are done in other climes, for instance in Canada. So it's not new. So what we are simply seeing is that given our own economic condition and how the media should operate and be sustainable, and that is why we have made this request. And we are glad and I'm happy to report that the president himself understands the issue. Like I said earlier, he himself is involved in mediapreneurship. He understands these issues. And so if we must evolve, if we must continue to survive, if we must continue to do our jobs, it is only fair that the media is considered in all of these reliefs that we are seeking. And it's nothing new. Many other countries do it. So why not Nigeria? So if you want the press to remain, viral, you want the press to continue to, to be alive to its responsibility, then there's nothing much that we're asking for that cannot be done. And we are glad that the president himself is not averse to it, and he has asked his team in the in the tax sector to engage with us to see how we can come to a middle ground to ensure that that is done. And you heard him very clearly yesterday that we should continue to follow up the issue and ensure that it is concluded within the shortest possible time. So we have a lot of hopes that this will be done, and we are very confident that once that is done, a lot of media organizations that are going through very difficult situations, especially their inability to pay salaries, their inability to ensure that operating costs are curtailed, will have some reliefs and be able to run seamlessly.
Mr. Abu, before we let you go, we know you have a busy day ahead of you. So let's talk about 2027. I know they did mention, I think it was the governor of the Progressive Governors Forum chairman, Hope Uzodimma, the governor of Imo State, that had mentioned some of the things he mentioned. He also talked about purging within the system itself. How should the media position, given what had played out? Because the narrative I perceive was the fact that perhaps he was trying to say, I stand to be corrected, because of the narrative and the reportage, we were left with a divided nation. I don't know why anybody would blame us for that. So how should we approach the 2027 election? Because it's the ground, Bukola mentioned it in passing, the real test always comes at those moments.
Yes, what the governor of Imo State, His Excellency Senator Hope Uzodimma said, he raised a lot of pertinent issues. But let me also say that the issues he raised while presenting his keynote address is a lot of them are his opinion. Because when you come to actually dealing with the issue of the press, it's always not like that. Because we have to be objective, we have to create, especially where multiple political parties are involved. And so it's what we have always done. The theme of our conference for this year is democratic governance and national cohesion, the role of the editors. And what we seek to do really is to be able to stimulate a national conversation early enough ahead of 2027 so that the gaps in 2023 elections can be quickly addressed rather than the kind of quick fix situations we have seen in the past. And so one of the things we also saw was the issue of electoral integrity and trust deficit, which is also forming a sub-theme for this conference, and what Nigerians should expect in 2027. And so these are some of the things we hope and to deal with in this conference. So we're also looking at the issue of concerns about the fact that rather than people determining, who should emerge their leaders, that it is the courts that are doing it. And we've also looked at what and why these issues, are continuing to recur in our political journey. And we are saying, look, let's begin this conversation early enough. Let's find out what are the issues, what are the problems, so that for us, our role is to continue to ensure that, that all the parties, all the stakeholders are fully engaged so that we can have a more robust, a more, platform under which people can have some confidence in our electoral process. And that is why you continue to see, low voters turnout or voter apathy in most of our elections these days.
All right, Mr. Abu. Thank you so much for coming through. Mr. Sebastian Abu is the Deputy President, Nigerian Guild of Editors, and the Chairman of the 21st All Nigerian Editors Conference. Thank you for your position. We appreciate you, sir. Oh dear, it appears the network has actually said no more. We'll take a break. When we come back after this break, we'll switch gears from politics and all that talk. We're talking sports. Nigeria against Gabon today at about 5 p.m. Nigerian time for the World Cup qualifiers. The playoff kickstarts today for us, and it's either we win or we go home. What is it going to be? We'll find out from our guest in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's bring in Kelechi Anyikude. Is a sports analyst, passionate Arsenal fan. Kelechi, thank you so much for coming on the program. Hello, Kelechi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you?
I'm very well. You're right there. I know that one of the first things I saw on social media for you was I remember Alex's video that went viral, and there were several comments, but you put up a video to say, hey, it may not be exactly what it is. So maybe walk us through, for those of us who are not in Morocco, before we get to talk about the match today and what had played out as against the bonuses and eventual resolution that has come through.
All right, like you said, all the drama started with the whole Alex's video, Alex Iwobi. He showed a view from his window, and some people went agog that, oh, they were staying in a poor hotel, blah, blah, blah. The hotel is not actually bad. I've been there for a while. I've been camped there since yesterday during this whole boycott. And it was just his hotel view. He didn't say anything in the video. And then people went, oh, NFF this, NFF. I'm not a fan of the NFF, don't get me wrong, but my job as a creator, as a media person, is to say the truth. And I'm like, I tried to reach out to the media officer. He was busy, so I said to myself, okay, I need to put something out. I'm like, I went to with the team to Rwanda. We stayed in Radisson Hotel, which is one of the best in Kigali. I went with the team to South Africa, the game against South Africa, Bluefin team. We stayed in Premier Inn. I went with the team to the game against Lesotho. We stayed in the ranch, like when I mean the ranch, like giraffe and everything. We popping out, beautiful hotel. So it should be weird for them to really downgrade them to some common hotel. And then when they now brought out the official statement, and I just knew I was right, and I saw the whole thing. I'm like, okay. And my thinking is there was just not enough space to take the whole team. There's so much going on in Rabat. The CAF Awards are coming up. There are different things going on in Rabat. So that's the hotel they could get that accommodate the whole team. If not, they would have been coming from maybe Casablanca, which is like an hour or two away. I mean, Gabon are staying very far. and then they wanted to stay near the training facilities, which is about 20 minutes from the hotel, which makes sense as well. So, yeah, but that was cleared up. Alex Iwobi went online and said, oh, this is a journalist with sense and stuff like that. I'm like, yo, don't cause problem for me. I'm just saying the truth. So, yeah, that's that. The boycott, I was stunned because that was the day I came into Rabat. I was even getting essentials in the market. And then I got the call that the police are boycotting. I'm like, what? I dropped everything. You have to get fresh information. I went there, nobody was confirming anything. So I was just waiting. Obviously, the news was broken by the journalist, BBC journalist, Shina Okeleji. And then when they came out to tell us that, yes, they are not training today, I then made my report. I saw the kit man offloading everything from the coach. They said they were not going. And then, negotiations carried on. We saw the NFF president that night. He wasn't saying anything to us. The next day, they resolved, and they made an official statement, and they trained yesterday very well.
So, you have already said that Alex Iwobi's video, triggered much of this. But do you think it was right for the Super Eagles, to boycott right ahead of very important playoffs? Could it have been managed in a better way?
I mean, to be honest, I don't think there's a right time. There's a way you'll be managing situations. You've been old for some time and you are managing, I go and play national interest, go and play. There comes a time you'll be like, hold on, are we being taken for a ride here? If they had gone on strike, let's say before the match against Benin Republic, say, oh, it's before a crucial match. If they had gone on strike before a crucial match against Zimbabwe, people still complain. So personally, I don't think there was a right time. Personally, if you ask me, I would have wanted them to just play. But again, a worker deserves his wages. So it was a training strike, not that they said they are not going to play the match. It was just a training strike. And they got what they wanted and what they deserve. And they trained very well yesterday.
So why should that even still be? To me, I don't know about you, but I guess as you as well, who is a lover of football, you travel around with the Super Eagles literally everywhere. Why should this be a conversation in 2025? Bonuses, pay. Why?
Honestly, I don't know. I was stunned by it. I thought this was in the past, but obviously, we've been hearing a few things. Even with the women's national team, you hear a few things. Even the men, the boys and girls are playing the age group football, the under 17s, under 20s. You hear they're being owed here and there. And I just think that something needs to be done at the NFF. They need to sort themselves out. We need a bit more accountability. This is just administrative. Just pay people what they are due or what you guys have negotiated. But as you are, I was stunned by it. But we thank God that it's now in the past, and hopefully we can carry on and win this game today.
Now, do you think the training session missed yesterday will affect the performance of the Super Eagles in any way?
I mean, they are professionals. That they didn't train yesterday or day for yesterday doesn't mean that there wasn't anything going on in the hotel. They will be doing their strength and conditioning, gym work, other tactical stuff on the board will be going on, just that they were not on grass. Personally, these are athletes, these are professionals, they train every time. I don't think it will affect them. God forbid we lose. I know people use it as an excuse, but they are professionals and I don't think it will affect them. Mentally, they are strong and they are prepared. From what they were telling us behind the scenes, no, they are going for it. So there's no cause for alarm.
Kelechi, the odds are huge and they're high. Walk us through the odds we're dealing with here. For those who are not familiar with football, especially, it's not a sports show. What are the odds? How many steps ahead before we can say, here we come, America?
3 steps. So if we, God willing, beat Gabon today, we'll face the winner of DR Congo versus Cameroon. And then Cameroon have their own drama going on as well. And then if we win that, that's the African playoffs final, we'll then travel to Mexico in March to play the Intercontinental final. Because of our seeding, we have a good seeding in the FIFA rankings. We are already kind of through to the final in that one as well. So we just play one more match, hopefully against maybe some country, maybe from Oceania region or Asia region. They're always very beatable, and then we win the World Cup. I believe that the African side of the playoffs is actually the difficult part because these teams are not. I mean, you're talking about Aubameyang, Lamina. In the DRC, you're talking about Wan-Bissaka. In Cameroon, Mbuemo. So it's the hard for me. It's the hardest part. But if we conquer this part, I think we are almost there.
You know, I was asking Jeffrey earlier on what our history is like with the Gabonese. So I'd like you to walk us through that with specific reference to perhaps players that we should be watching out for, what the concerns should be in this match with the Gabonese.
To be honest, I'm not really abreast with our head-to-head. I've not researched that, but I think we're heading each time we face. I don't think they've beaten us since 1990, something like that. I'm not too sure. But players we should watch out for. Aubameyang, he plays in Marseille now. He's a former Arsenal player. I know the player very well. Still going strong at 35. He literally dragged them to these playoffs, so he's a good player, a great player as well. Lamina is a compatriot of Victor Osimhen and Galatasaray. A very, very good player, played in the Premier League with Wolves as well. So these two players stand out. But again, you know, Gabon are fighting to go for their first World Cup. So it's a different, ginger in them. So we have to be wary of the underdog in this game. But I personally don't think it should be a problem. We have more than enough firepower after what we did against Benin Republic to go to the final on Sunday.
I like to identify weak links so that we know where we're up against. So if you were to do your basic analytics in terms of weak links that we need to watch out for, that the opponent, this time Gabon, before we talk about who is the winner between DRC and Cameroon, what are the weak links that you can clearly see and say, okay, we need to watch this part so that we don't get beaten?
Personally, I don't see any weak links. I mean, after what happened against Benin Republic, where we needed 4 goals, I scored the 4 goals, you could see a different spirit in them. They were just going for it. Even someone like Ichukwueze was playing with an injury because he had to assist, got subbed out because of the injury. Everybody was just playing through their teeth, to be honest. So I don't see any weak links. The defense is pretty much sorted. The kid, Benjamin Fredericks, has been a revelation so far in these qualifiers. You have Calvin Bassett. All these boys are playing regularly for their club side, and they are good to go. In fact, I was at the Fulham-Everton match last weekend, and I watched the boys play, the 3 Nigerians play, and they are looking sharp. So I personally don't see any weak links. If anybody's not playing well, we have the bench to come and rescue the situation. So I personally don't see any weak links. We just need to be wary of the underdog, not go and underrate Gabon, and then take our eyes off the ball. For me, probably that's the only thing I can say. But the boys are ready and sharp.
That's what I was talking about, underrating. And the energy we saw in the last match, that Victor Osimhen, I think that hat-trick, was quite palpable. And the question everybody was saying, or what everybody seemed to be saying there, was that we needed this form of enthusiasm, this form of strength of patriotism and energy, as we used to see in the days of the JJs and all of them. Are you seeing that in the camp? What is the spirit in the camp as we speak, given the fact that they just got off this disagreement about bonuses and all of that?
Well, the spirit is very electric. The boys want to play in the World Cup. Out of the current squad, there's only Ndidi, the captain, Truster Ekong, and Iwobi that have been to the World Cup. The rest have not been to the World Cup. It's every player's dream to go to the World Cup. So they share the same passion and zeal with us that everybody wants to go to the World Cup. So they are really, really gingered. Like, I've not seen this kind of fight in them in a long time. So yes, the game against Benin Republic, we saw so much fight. We could say, okay, the games that we played before, that we are drawing too many games. To be honest, in more than half of those games, Victor Osimhen wasn't there. He's our best player. He's our talisman. So with him firing very well in Europe, he scored a hat-trick last week. I'm sure that we'll get this one in the bag.
I know that we like to do one game at a time. I remember I was very young. I was still a teenager. I almost had a heart attack in '94 when we lost because the way the Super Eagles went to that World Cup. As a young boy, I felt like we're going to get to somewhere close to the finals. And then when we did what we did at the group stage, and then it looked like we were lackluster slightly in the next round, and then we got kicked out. It was like, wow, what happened to us? But let's extrapolate a little bit more. If we cross Gabon, what should we be looking at if it happens between us and Cameroon on one hand, and it comes to us and DRC on the other hand?
Personally, I think I will, because we don't know DRC's game that well. Cameroon I'm familiar for. I would prefer to face Cameroon. I mean, we even beat them in the last AFCON. They're gonna be without Guiza of Napoli, who's injured, and some other key players. So I think they're a bit weak at the moment, and they are very beatable. DRC, they're that unfamiliar foe that you don't know what they will come with. So I think that if we beat Gabon, I'll prefer to face Cameroon. But bring anybody. We're talking about the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Anytime they are underrated or they are doubted, they turn up. The last AFCON, I can't tell you how many people, even brands, we are sending people out for only 3 games. The group, they say, Super Eagles will come back now. Next thing they went to the final, but started scrambling for people to go Europe. So don't never underrate the Super Eagles. They know when to turn up, and they will turn up today.
We expect them to turn up, Kelechi. Before, I wonder, you're all over the place all the time. How do you do it? Do you have like funding? What exactly? Because I don't think if the Super Eagles are going to a fishing port, you'll be there.
I mean, I'm a patriotic Nigerian. I support the team. I support my boys. Even the Lesotho game, I was the only media person there. They were stunned. They're like, you're here. I'm like, yeah, we're in together, because if people didn't believe that we're going to scale through, but I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. Let's move. So you just support them. I'm a patriotic Nigerian, like I said. I enjoy it. I'm doing my work. Yeah. I hope everybody's
happy. We hope that type of profitable patriotism goes round to all journalists. Before we let you go, Kelechi, please share with us what your predictions for the game.
Oh, that's good. I'm predicting. I know that our goalkeeper has been under the cosh at the moment. A lot of criticisms. I think we should back him. He's the number one, but I don't think he's going to concede today. So I'm going for a 3-0 victory to the Super Eagles of Nigeria.
All right. Yeah, okay. That gets me excited.
Let's watch and see. This evening in Morocco, we'll get to see how that plays out. But all I want is just a victory. Whether it's half goal is fine by me.
Whether it's 1 goal,
half is fine. Half, if half is allowed, I'm okay. We just want to go through all of these playoffs. Kelechi Anyikude is a sports journalist. Thank you so much for coming through, and wish you the very best.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys, please do also make sure you watch that match. I think it's 5 p.m. Nigerian time. So it's a playoff. It's the African playoff. Nigeria against Gabon. DRC will be playing against Cameroon. Whoever wins that match, I believe and I hope Nigeria wins so that we can face whoever wins between Cameroon and DRC. And then we'll go to the international playoffs in a match that's in Mexico, where we'll get to face, I hope, an underdog somewhere, where we'll get to kick them out and just settle in America. It's a 3-nation game, Canada, United States, and Mexico for the World Cup 2026. So we cannot not be at this World Cup. So, Bukola, I hope you're ready. Are you ready to travel?
To travel? Well, I don't mind a break. I would have to be covering.
Going to the World Cup, it's not break, it's work.
Well,
all right.
If you say so. But please watch this match based on the advice of your medical practitioner. If you don't have to watch the match, it's a very critical one. Please do not watch the match. Queue up behind emotional safety.
Yes, I totally agree. Okay, let's tell you before we go the things we've been tracking that you've been talking about. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo and Oyo State Governor dancing during the commissioning of a project in Ibadan. So you can see, this man never gets tired. The more you want President Obasanjo to slow down, the more, and he wears canvas, he jumps. Sometimes when he wants to jump, I'm scared.
Jeffrey, you took the words right out of my mouth. I'm never scared because I've seen him do it quite a number of times, and I wonder where he gets the energy to keep jumping across
jolly good fellow,
high-rise stages, you know, with such strength and energy. And he's 89 years old, I believe.
Yeah, about that.
We're not quite sure about his age. So he could
himself and Professor Wole Soyinka, they're always at each other's throats. So who is older?
Age dispute, right?
And all of that. So, but let's tell the people what you're saying. So that's former President Olusegun Obasanjo and Governor Seyi Makinde digging it out on the red carpet during the commissioning of one of the largest bus terminals in Ibadan yesterday. Priska now, you say Baba OBJ and Governor Makinde vibing in Ibadan. Unity in action, more cross-grain collabs like this go build all your beautiful stuff.
And Sir Philip Web3 says, a rare moment of unity. Obasanjo and Makinde together sends a positive signal for collaboration and progress in Oyo State.
And just before we let you go, Guinness World Records congratulates Tasha, who has set 2 Guinness World Record titles for the most cosmetic makeovers in 8 hours and 24 8 hours and 24 something. Okay, 24 and 8 hours, I guess. So this person is saying, congrats, Thatcher, breaking 2 Guinness records in one go. Okay.
And, well, you didn't conclude that, but I guess that's the much we can take.
Yes, that's the much we can take on the program today. So keep it coming. We'll make sure we get your thoughts across to everyone who cares to pay attention to it, because your thoughts are quite important. They are feedback mechanism to hear from hear from you as to what you're saying on issues of national interest. They could be serious, they could be social, they could be economic. We're here to amplify it for you. But thank you for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Sunrise Daily is up next, so stay with Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka. Bye for now.